Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Last Hit, episode 4. We are really rolling along here in the LPL, and it's good to have, bit of forward momentum here. That's what we like. Lyric at the end, joined by Dagda. I am hysterics, and it is a pleasure to see you guys. I called you the most attractive men in China last week, the best casters the week before. This week, you are the most intelligent tri-cast anyone's ever seen in League of Legends history. How do you feel about that one?
I feel like you're only saying that because you were involved in the TriCast as well, so by default,
Bit
you
of
become
bias.
the most
I
intelligent.
feel like your positivity is kind of bringing me down.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's not
I
how
always-
that works.
It kind of brings out my negative vibes.
It was a good tri-cast. I really enjoyed it because obviously for anyone who didn't tune in, this was the first tri-cast done in 2020, and we haven't done one in a while, bar finals or anything.
It wasn't the worst TriCast I've ever heard.
Hey, there's the positivity, which is still a little bit negative, but that was a lot of fun because we have been prepping for that for quite a while. And shout out to Clement Chu who helped us get ready for that, and I think we just shot into it live, and I was very surprised at how much fun it was.
Yeah, I think the stuff like the podcast and also the dynamic we have outside of casting as a whole, where we actually go out for beers and we hang out, definitely made that a lot easier because it felt like I was just kind of chatting with you guys about League like we
True.
do if we're not watching the game.
We're a good dynamic as well, right? You got a salty American man down the end, a positive Irish man, and a weird Australian who just kind of doesn't sit in the middle, sometimes goes a bit too negative, and we balance each other out, which is kind of nice. So how'd you feel about it, Lyric? How'd you feel about practicing with your two favorite boys?
I feel like despite the games, despite my predictions and the heartbreak, the power of friendship trumps all.
Of course. We're just coming off that RNG FPX cast now. It is a Sunday when we record the podcast. They should be getting it around the Wednesday as usual to get you through the middle of the week. And it's good timing as well because the English broadcast comes to an end on the Wednesday, so they'll be hitting this in week number 6. But ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward in the show because with Dagda and Lyric, I like creating change. I also like creating change in real life as well. We're moving into new format in a sense, right? And we're going to start off with our Lord and Saviors in V5. This is how we're going to start off the show from now. We're going to do the V5 temperature check. And for week number 5, it is lukewarm. And V5 right now, they're 6-2. They've just come off a win of E-Star as we speak. Looking pretty good.
I gotta say, they are looking pretty good. I wasn't sure after the performance today if we needed to maybe up it a little bit because I feel like they're a little bit better than lukewarm. But definitely, like Mo looked absolutely incredible. Them as a whole really looked like they stepped up.
Look, these guys are my boys. They're much better than lukewarm. But I agree. If we're putting it into context of being world's winners,
Thank you.
definitely lukewarm.
Especially since, coming up, they will have top esports. I did an 8-day counter today, which was kind of fun to see. That's their trajectory. FPX was their recent loss, but against E-Star again today was really, really nice. And another part of this is we will check in with V5 every single week to see if the meme becomes a dream. Are V5 better than the LEC? A question I'll ask you each week, and I'm talking about any team in the LEC. Lyric, start with you. What is it this week?
This one's easy. V5 are better than... you're asking about the LEC. They're better than any team in the West.
Okay.
I'm not going to give any reasoning. They just are.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of with Lyric on this one. After I watched the performances from Fnatic and G2 and stuff this week, I was
Good.
kind of like, do you know what? Yeah, V5, you're on the up and up here.
Get ready to prepare your answer. A simple yes or no in future, by the way. No context needed. We're just going to keep throwing a bit of salt their way. So yes is the decision from me as well this week. V5 are better than the LEC. Moving forward, let's bring the Dunk and Dud to a closer part of the show, gentlemen, because this has always been a favorite of mine. I think the Dud and Dunk has been a fan favorite as well. We start with the positivity in Dagda. Sir, what is your dunk this week?
My dunk this week is got to be Kanavi because I watched him just absolutely destroy kids on his Lee Sin, and it was an absolute beauty to watch. Every single time against Invictus Gaming, he went into a fight. He put off some amazing heroic montage play, and I have no idea how you can be that damn good on Lee Sin.
Yeah, it's just great to see. He's making early aggressive plays. He's not taking as many resources, but he's still willing to step up as the carry and make the clutch play when needed.
And it was interesting to see as well, because like usually when we look at Spring, Kanavi was like, cool, everyone follow me. I'm going to go invade, and Yagao Zoom, you're going to come and be the rest of the group that fills in here. But actually now, we did see a little bit of it against IG, but it's certainly more Kanavi playing towards his lanes and trying to set up bot lane for success. And as you said, taking less of those resources, but still having these phenomenal performances, which is what I love.
Nice to see, because when JDG was so insecure at the start of the split, when JDG was showing so many signs of weakness, Kanavi being the strong point here for JDG once again is such a good talking point, especially when at the start of the split there were a couple of games with some big question marks towards Kanavi, like the Kindred game where he never altered. I can't remember who it was against, but it was like, okay, Kanavi, what are you doing?
There's one of his Trundle games at the start of the split as
Yes.
well, where it's just like, all right, cool, we're going to back in the enemy jungle and think we're going to be totally fine. I was like, that's not how that works.
But now, moving towards good momentum, and I think JDG have shown that on a win streak, as we're recording this episode as well, is a good sign that JDG could return to that top 4. Top 2 is where their benchmark should be.
Yeah, and I highly expect them to at least get back onto this bandwagon. The only thing that I'm worried about is, well, what have we seen outside of that for Kanavi? Because it has very much been the Lee Sin that's been the go-to. And if we start to see teams either take it away or just outright ban it, well, what happens then when we get to that?
Because we know he has a wider champion pool,
Well, I mean, but it comes down to, it's not just about your champ, it's about how your team is playing around it, how your lanes are doing, because his lanes have definitely needed more help this split, so that's why I think we've seen him succeed more on the Lee Sin. Compared to the Graves and the Kindred champions that should be his picks, he's kind of struggled. And, Kanavi's been doing well. Don't pick Kane anymore. I'm done with Kane.
Oh, man.
Not even just his Kane. I just don't want to see
Dude,
Kane.
Kane globally just has had so much failure. People have just been bringing it out as like this pocket pick, and just so horrible on that note, right?
Yeah, it's looked absolutely atrocious. I'm baffled why we keep seeing it, because even we had a conversation a while ago when we saw those buffs coming through, and you're like, yeah, I mean, look, he kind of is good, but the problem is he just falls off a cliff at a certain point, and he's kind of just a crap bruiser that is behind already because he's a jungler. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what does he really bring to the table?
I mean, coming back to Kanavi quickly, while we are dunking him down, where do you put him in the midst of the other junglers at the moment? Because with Kanavi finding form, he was the best jungler of 2020 spring, without a doubt in my mind. MVP, right, of the regular season?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to ranking junglers, it's one where I honestly can't do it, because when you look at this role, when you think about all the names of people who are performing well or getting back into form, like, I could maybe make a list of like a top 7, but like between Weiwei, Tien, Kanavi, Peanut, Beishang, like Karsa, just keep
True.
going. And we have so many Ning that are getting into form. It's like, man, I have no idea where to rank any of these guys because this role is just so stacked.
But at least now he's firmly back in that conversation, not drifting anywhere below it.
Well, I like that he's dagged his dunk for this week, because this week he looked great.
Yep.
But we need to see him continue that to really keep him in that conversation. And as you pointed out, play more champions well with, his team around him.
Yeah, because I think the big thing is that, like, the playmaking ability on the Lee Sin is there. But when we start to see him go back towards these Trundles and these kind of picks where you don't have these big highlight moments, can we see him have the same impact? And I'm not certain we will. And it's not so much of a Kanavi thing. It's very much what Lyric said, where, Zoom hasn't been looking so hot this split.
Yeah.
Your Yagao isn't able to control the lane as much as he was in previous splits as well. So I'm kind of like, well, what happens to Kanavi at that stage?
I was almost going to give you a dunk to the rest of JDG. We'll turn you into the dud. I mean, one week we should actually turn it around, give you the dud, and turn Lyric into the positive guy.
How to kill him in one turn.
I'm ready, I guess.
Well, we're not going to go to the dud just yet. I just have one more question about Kanavi. Where do you see the trajectory? Do you see this as being back on top, or just Kanavi had a good week, good to see? I'm still skeptical.
It's very much a question mark for me.
Okay.
I am still skeptical just because, again, this playmaking ability is there in the Lee Sin. I don't know what happens if we see him going back towards like a Rek'Sai or a Trundle
Kindred.
or, well, the Kindred and the Graves is exactly because you need your team to kind of facilitate that to a certain extent. So I just don't see it personally. I don't know if you agree.
So
It's-
I'm skeptical of it, but obviously, so we're using the word trajectory, which I think can also point to potential. Obviously, potential is he can be the best jungler in the LPL.
Yep.
So that will always be a bright sign, but I need to see more from him as well, despite the fact that JG are on a 4-series win streak and, are still making the rep, and they're also improving all around in every role. So I think we can see it.
Because the expectation for JDG, just as a side note, was that they were going to be the top 2 team. They would be second under top esports or first.
I'd say top 3 at least. Like,
Yeah.
FPX was
From
coming
the
from as
get-go,
well, but
yeah.
top 3 is, insane.
And on a brighter note as well, I think Loken's been looking really damn
Oh,
good.
dude,
like,
yeah.
to give this guy his due, like, I didn't have high hopes when I was like, oh, it's Loken and Lumao for bot lane. It's like, cool, they're reunited. That was kind of the extent of it. But Loken is, since spring finals, has really started to step up massively on the squad.
Great. Considering he was on top esports and he was such a silent bottom lane alongside Ben. It's nice to see him here in 2020 actually getting a bit of a credit on this team. We'll move forward. Lyric, you know what? It's time to be a bit negative. Who are you throwing into your dud?
I had a couple options this week, but at the end of the day, after that series, I have to stick with RNG
Oh,
because my
good.
problem with RNG is the fact that you look at this roster, and New comes in, he surprised us. He looked great. He's winning lanes. He's having impact in these big team fights. Xiaolongbao having some moments where, like, man, this guy's the next big thing. He is that next Young Miracles jungle. The potential.
Yeah.
I've always been huge on Xiaohu, and even them bringing in Cryin, it's like, okay, I can see how the system can work with them having diverse choices. Betty's always been great. Ming was my favorite support to watch last year, even against Chris, because he just had so many big playmaking moments, and even Gala today looking good. But every time they show you they understand how to play the game, they draft these early game comps that are supposed to be hard to execute. They stop the next game they fail for no reason. They get scared to pull the trigger. Someone throws, whether it's Xiaolongbao or it's Betty or it's Xiaohu, doesn't matter. And then game 3, they just don't show up. Game 3, RNG does not exist, and it frustrates me.
I love how you were so tilted after talking for 3 hours about RNG. The next thing you want to do is come out the podcast and just berate them again.
It's because I love them. That's why I'm big fan of RNG, big fan of a lot of the players on this team. I'm a fan of peak League of Legends. We keep talking about this. I'm a skill ceiling guy. I'm a potential guy.
Yeah.
What RNG shows me is exciting and fun to watch. But now I just can't believe anymore. I can't predict them anymore because they just keep hurting my score.
It's just insane that you can think of RNG in that Game 1 capacity against FPX today, and it looks gorgeous. You're like, oh my god, RNG, this is great. You know, keep testing your teams, keep testing the limits. It can only go up from here. Then a game 2 that should have been won with a super fed Kaiser, with a super fed Corki. You've got double 80 carries that can only go up, and they go down.
Especially today. Gala obviously having that one horrible moment game 2. And
Yes.
Xiaolongbao after the early game in a recent series is just non-existent. And I'm firmly off the hype train of RNG. I still love them in my heart, but I'm going to say here, RNG just
This is it.
no more faith.
This is
is
the
it.
turning point.
You lost Lyric, so if there was potential for, an RNG Lyric comic like Munchables got suiting,
Oh, yeah.
it is now gone because I'm off the hype train
It
until
also-
they show me another beautiful game.
It also means that they don't get the lyric buff now, where you basically have lyric support you for a split, and then you suddenly become really good like V5.
Oh,
So
yeah.
instead now, RNG are just going to continue on this downward
Sorry,
trajectory.
RNG, but 2021 spring was going to be your split. But
Not anymore.
now it's gone.
So what team do you swap to now?
I don't know, just have V5. What do you mean?
Okay, so you just back on V5.
I mean, I was never off V5. Just you could have more than one team that you
you're a
enjoy
bit
to
too
watch.
realistic with V5.
Okay,
though.
my other one is Rogue Warriors.
Oh no.
Hey, 2021 spring Rogue
Hey,
Warriors.
if they play like spring in this year, then that's exciting, all right? But coming back to RNG, I think the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what roster interchanges here. It doesn't matter if we have Cryin or Xiaohu or, we run different 80 carries. RNG hold the same identity, which is don't get your hopes up for game 2 and 3 because they'll let you down.
A lot of that is down to the coordination that we were talking about, though, in that series. It's just like, I don't know, maybe it's because they're trying out all these different people. They just don't really know how to gel together because you've got so many subs coming in. But at the end of the day, when I look at this roster, the inability for them to make that breakneck speed decision where you just need to turn on a dime and go and make that play happen, it's just not there. You can see like one person goes to make the play and then everyone else lags a second, so he backs off. It's like, oh no, we're not going for this, and then the whole play falls apart. But they still try to make it work. It's just that you've lost your chance now and you only put yourselves in worse position.
You were saying on broadcast, right?
I could say nailing it down to my biggest problem with RNG is me and Munchables talked about how, especially in LPL where you do have a lot of star talent, I think clutch factor is like super important. Showing up in that high pressure critical moment.
Yeah.
And RNG might be the worst team in LPL with that. When it comes to the moment that matters most is when you know RNG will fail. When there's no pressure is when you know RNG will probably show up and have a great series. But when it's
Wow.
all on the line is when, that's when you bet against RNG. RNG aren't going to help you.
Because this is something we've talked about for a while now, and Dagdy actually brought it up on broadcast, where for RNG, the shot calling is such an issue. And then Lyric was touching on the veterancy in the roster and how it shouldn't be with the strong voices like Xiaohu and Ming. But what Uzi actually added to the roster, bar his individual talent, was the fact that he was such a dominating voice. RNG shot calling wasn't the issue, sometimes being over-ambitious, which was better than nothing.
And I can't remember what that interview was, but it was with Karsa anyway, and he was talking about his time on RNG, and he's like, look, Uzi was like the godfather on the team. You basically, you listened to whatever he said, you would play towards him, you knew he was going to be the big carry and be able to carry, be the big influence in that game. And I think that's what RNG right now is missing, is that just one voice that if he says go, everyone just says how quick.
Yeah.
You just go. You don't think about
And
it.
relating it to personal experience, back when I was on Flamingo, it's like we are a very similar roster. We have tons of experience. Shrimp from NALCS, Goku's played a bunch of splits in CBL, BRTT, no doubt. Lucy's played over in the LSPL before.
Yeah.
But BRTT was that Uzi-like figure that he had the killer instinct and would say, just everyone go, and everyone would go. It doesn't matter if you all know how to play the game like we saw today in RNG Game 2. They all know what FPX is going to do. They're countering it beautifully. But you don't have anyone with that killer instinct who's just say, everyone go now, and we all follow through.
You do. It's just Gala who killer instinct straight into the
And then,
LNG.
rest RNG, like, we going or what? What's happening here? It's really sad to see a team that has big names on a roster fall this hard. They're now sitting, as of this podcast, 4-4. And that's an RNG who, once again, are kind of letting the ball down. In spring, out round 1 in playoffs against EDG. Like,
will they make playoffs this split?
That's right.
There's a lot of teams that I'm kind of looking at going to the make split, like RNG, EDG, like both these teams. I'm like, I feel like our top 8 is going to take a massive shift from where we were in spring.
When V5 and LGD make it, they'll be laughing.
I think EDG is going to make it, but that's maybe that's a discussion for another day.
Hey, maybe you can dunk that next week if you want.
Oh.
What if we did a double dunk one week?
Oh, that's too much.
Too much positivity?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how
You
next
do
week
have
goes.
JDG, EDG tomorrow, so maybe wait
Hey,
and see how that one
watch-
goes first.
Watch everyone go like 1-1 next week, and then there's no one to be my dud, and we're just like, well, everyone did good this week.
And
so.
then really no one to dunk. Because, like, you're like, well, everyone went middle of
So
the
we
line.
just have like an apathetic section. Everyone, we're indifferent about everyone.
Yeah. Everyone did okay this week. All right, RNG are going to be your dud. Beautiful stuff. Let's move on to today's topic because today and this week has been very much about junglers returning to form, or at least the past week and a half. Running into today, it has become the kind of end of week of junglers. We'll start with Haro here on Rogue Warriors because a lot of the split we've seen Yodung so far, and it's like, okay, what does Yodung add to Rogue Warriors? Wasn't as much as Haro did now that he's back.
No, and we talked about before that Haro defined the way Rogue Warriors plays. He was like the star catalyst to this super aggressive style that, is either going to stomp you, going to bring you to like a 50-minute bloody Nexus killing game, or get stomped. And to me, Haro can really be shown in, I can't remember who was against, but they were like 6K gold behind, and they were still the team invading the enemy red buff, which,
Yes.
of course, they all died. But that's just how Rogue Warriors play. Rogue Warriors are going to look for all the aggressive options. Haro's going to get into the lanes earlier than Yodong would. Maybe he was more stable, but Haro is the guy that, especially when you don't have a lot of star power in your lanes, which they really have none, you need someone like this who's going to be the catalyst and say, hey, buddy, I'm going to make sure you get a lead and take this team to the next level.
Or Haro just takes the lead and is like, cool, I got this, guys, get on my back here. Because we've seen it from him, like with some of his Graves performances. He had that massive Elise game in spring where I was like, hey, you don't want to feed an Elise. And then Haro's like, hey, hold my beer. So I think we can still see Haro definitely setting up, especially towards the bottom lane. He just loves playing down that end. So as long as he's getting them set up down that side or himself, I actually like that. I always feel like Rogue Warriors have the potential to upset. They always have the potential to just be that team that comes in out of nowhere, has some of the finest League of Legends ever, and then just goes home and is like, well, that's it for another 2 months,
that's why they were so potent in spring, because it was teams running up against them. It's like even IG got tested at the start of spring split.
RNG. I mean, you guys casted that series.
And it was like, why are Rogue Warriors so potent? And the leadership that came from Haro was so devastating. It's good to see them find that identity again, because my biggest issue with Yodung, and we actually talked about this, was that Yodung wasn't necessarily a bad jungler, but Lyric, as you've said many times, he didn't fit the identity of this team.
And it looked like Rogue Warriors want to try to go towards that more late game oriented style. They know they have Ruby, who's just going to play things like Azir. They tried to make it work, but guess what? All 3 of your lanes were still losing. Bot lane especially, because the Lay was not performing well at all the beginning weeks. Holder and Crazy both pretty much lose lane every game. Sorry, Holder and Crazy.
And also, as you've said, same player, pretty much. The same champion.
Exactly.
What's the difference?
Yeah, so felt like Yodong's job was really hard and he had the work cut out for him, right? To where Haro's at least willing to come in and be like, hey, guys, I'm going to work with what I have. You're all going to play around what I want to do. And, it goes good or bad. I don't necessarily think Haro is, in that conversation for top 5 junglers in the LPL.
Definitely.
But the fact that his style, his ruthless aggression is very unique, and that the team is willing to accept that identity, I think is what makes him really fun.
And I think it does feel like a lot around kind of what you're touching on is if Haro's on form and Lay is on form, Rogue Warriors win.
Yep.
If you've got a bunch of hooks coming in from Lay and Haro's just there cleaning City, well, then it looks amazing. And then we're like, Rogue Warriors, why the hell can't you do this all the time? But it is that super inconsistency, as you say, where that aggression sometimes pays off, sometimes it bites them, and sometimes Lei just doesn't perform. And we saw it in the last series that Rogue Warriors have, where I don't think he hit a hook for the first, like, 25 minutes of the game.
I mean, if we're talking Lei, prepare that for the next dud. I'll do it myself if I have to.
I also wanted to say, their soul laners are just not. Ruby was having some okay games at the start
But then
of the
he
split.
power. I think it was the EDG series.
It was
wasn't
it was Azir. It was
Yeah.
Azir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it. He power into.
Like
He literally like, hey boys,
Like, think
let's
about
go.
it. It is a struggle when you play in a team where your two soul laners, so two of your carries, probably the bottom of their roles.
Mhm.
You look at Zhang Wuji, and once again, he's
man.
at best, I'd say at best mid tier.
When he came in, he was mid tier, which was already a surprise.
So,
He hasn't gone anywhere.
I actually think even if Haro has an amazing game every game, if Haro has an amazing game every game,
Yeah.
that's how that sentence works. And then you have Lei show up, you're still having like a 50-50 chance. Like, are the rest of my laners actually going to show up today?
It's hard. It's hard for Haro, and I'm glad he's returned to Rogue Warriors. That he is starting in the jungle. It's important because Rogue Warriors need their first win on the board. As we're recording this, they're 0-7, and Haro, his dynamic, see if it can pull that first series win. Let's move forward because another jungler that has been playing well, and even though this is about the week of junglers returning, in brackets I had to form. Right? And Ning has returned to form. This is the best Ning we've seen, I think, since 2018 Worlds, or 2019 Spring, to be fair. He had a good split then as well when they won and beat JDG in the finals. Ning playing well again with no other jungler behind him is a really good sign of life.
As long as he's not on Rek'Sai. That's the only
Okay,
caveat I'll
okay.
add to that. I think he's been looking really good. Same as kind of Kanavi on the Lee Sin, and at least things where you can control the early side of the game and set up for IG. But there are some times where, like in the series against DMO, we had them trading that Lee Sin and Rek'Sai back and forth, where I was just like, okay, as long as Ning is on the Lee Sin portion of this, we're okay. The Rek'Sai was kind of a bit iffy, but I think definitely seeing Ning return to form and having these big playmaking abilities and setting up towards both Rookie and the Shy. Because when Ning is able to just babysit the Shy and he's not going, or still going with 5 deaths, but at least getting 3-4 kills there, he's still able to have those impacts and setting up for Rookie to just take over. Because Rookie, for me, is the heart and soul of IG.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, at
and
the moment especially.
For me, there's like a few aspects to Ning that we need to see, and that we have seen. Is that one, he needs to be able to help cover for the Shy. Maybe he doesn't need a hard camp, because we actually haven't seen him doing that anymore like he was doing early on in spring. He'll just kind of shadow when he needs to, make sure that the Shy can get his own vision set up. Sometimes he'll give a control ward for the Shy, which is good to see. 2, he's been showing up in team fights.
Yep.
Ning's mechanics have never been a problem. Ning has always been a really mechanically proficient jungler. That's why he was a world's MVP. And as long as he can keep doing that, especially on the Lee Sin, even on things like the Trundle, he's looked really good. And yeah, I'm excited to see Ning going forward. And if he can just keep his laners steady going into the mid game, then it's really up to, members like Rookie. And we need to see their bot lane step up, especially because we need to accept the Shy is not going to be a reliable carry. He's obviously been performing much better recently as well. I would say a large part of that does come from Ning. But the fact that Ning has found this stability, right, we need to see, especially in my mind, Puff stepping up to take on more of a carry role.
I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about like how the dynamic of IG's changed and like where he should play through. It is good to see Ning actually paying a little bit more of attention bot, where he would never visit that lane when it was Jackie Love and Baolan, right?
But like moving on from bot, which he gives a little attention to.
Little.
The thing we never see from him, which surprises me, Rookie and Ning don't play like 2v2 mid jungle. Almost never. That's why things like Rek'Sai, in my opinion, don't really make sense for him. Even Lee Sin, which he's surprisingly good on, we don't see him pair up with Rookie. Another jungle champion I think of with Ning is Zach. What's Zach amazing at ganking mid because he does have so many angles. But this is something in IG we just haven't seen explored at all this year.
And it is surprising because especially when, well, look, it's kind of a case of, all right, well, Rookie's going to win. Rookie's going to beat out his lane anyway. It feels like 9 times out of 10. So for me, in my head, I look at Ning going, well, I could go mid and just double down on that win, or I could stop the Shy from just gifting over a kill every 2 minutes.
Which chances are he'll do anyway, even with
even when you
Another further thing you just made me realize is, it also, like, Rookie does not play to try to, like we've seen mid laners like Scout do, especially when they're in melee matchups, try to get the bounce back and set up for the gank from his jungler.
Yeah.
Rookie doesn't do that. Rookie's going to sit under your tower the whole time if he could. So I guess Ning doesn't even necessarily get opportunities to gank mid, but it feels like it would just add so much to their play if they did just go together like, hey, man, can you set up your wave for me? And, I can come give you kills. Rookies were like, no, I don't need you.
What's that mean?
Real people fight 1v1.
It's
Mid lane is 1v1.
It's such a weird dynamic because every other team will always essentially set up for mid, right? Like, I think this is one of the few teams, if the only team in the LPL.
I think we have a couple actually in LPL that don't play around mid. But still, the fact that
Rare,
you
right?
potentially have the best mid laner, at very least the second best mid laner, and you don't play hard for mid is pretty surprising.
With one of the best junglers as well when he's in form, right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
But I think that's why sometimes we can kind of see well, I think he's looked a lot better and is in form, but I think it is difficult sometimes to kind of put the blame onto Ning because oftentimes it does kind of feel like, well, he's playing whack-a-mole, and if he's in the right place at the right time and the wave is there or the wave is pushing out and he has an opportunity, well then cool, we can go for this play. But it just seems that sometimes he's on top side of the map, he's trying to make a play towards either Shy or Rookie, and they just never give him the opportunity to present that for him.
At the very least, though, it's good to see Ning not Nid. Just saying. Like, at this point, seeing a good form of Ning is good, especially with Loyan leaving the roster again. He has no other option. It has to be him in the jungle. So, IG picking Ning while for BLG. And to our final jungle change, Best 16 started the split off. A previous OMG jungler who played Riven Jungle a couple of times last year. Was not a fan. Another part I wanted to go into today was a team that when reaching out to the community that we haven't actually touched on yet, which is actually Team WE. And considering that WE through last split were about, predictable drafts, about Teacher Ma opening up the map, as the Chinese side calls it, comps that flow with the wind, I think this is worth a discussion because for Team WE, it's been a while since, one, people have seen this team at Worlds, and two, that they've been a top team in the league right now sitting up in the standings.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, at least, I don't know about you, Lyric, it feels weird talking about WE without Munchables here. He's been their fanboy for so long, and the Morgan hype train, but definitely think this team has looked good. It's their very unique style, like comes to flow with the wind, but definitely this pick-orientated style where it's Beisheng, as you talked about, getting in, trying to invade onto camps, and having the Gallios, the Twisted Fates, these ideas, being able to follow him back and forth and making sure he's safe, and then just picking off people in different scenarios, whether it's, okay, well, we've ended up in this skirmish, we just have reinforcements there sooner, or if it is just, hey, Beisheng's in the middle of things, he's dove onto someone as Echo, here comes the Galio.
Yeah, and I think it was a very good transition from jungle topic to WE because this is a team whose star players are jungler. Honestly, Beisheng might be the best jungler in the league. It's very hard because I said that conversation is so stacked. When I think about it, Beisheng is one of those names that jumps out as like, man, this guy is so good.
His road of improvement, especially when was it last year? I believe last year was his debut on WE because
he's only 18, right? I'm pretty sure he's only 18.
Super young,
yeah.
super young. And like when you have a pocket pick that people respect, even teams to ban away, like
even way to copy and take for himself.
Like the Echo with Dark Harvest, like that is Beisheng's champion. And I love that you put him up there in the jungle discussion because for Beisheng, he was on the edge, on the precipice. He's like a middle tier last year especially. And now the new dynamic with Teacher Ma, they're working really well together. They've actually built up some really nice synergy.
And the thing that's crazy to me about him, too, is his team fighting is so good.
Yeah.
And even on Graves, like, Graves and Kindred, these types of champions are a lot harder, I think, for junglers to integrate to since you do play team fights differently, right? You are more of a carry. You do have more, like, DPS aspects, too. You need to position better. And Beisheng does it perfectly. Beisheng's Graves in that contention for might be the best Graves in the league. He's definitely top 3 in the league on Graves. Obviously, Echo is another champion. Your dynamic in team fights is very different. Hitting that parallel convergence could be massive to changing a team fight. Managing your health bar and not going down before you use your ultimate reposition for a fight. And Beisheng, best team fighting jungler in the league. There we go. I committed.
Yeah, it's like you've been teasing
I'm
this
trying.
a little bit throughout. It's like maybe he's the best. Is he the best? It's like, yeah, look, I 100% agree. I think he's looked absolutely incredible. I love the way the team does play towards him, though. As we talk about, look, Teacher Matt coming in, he also plays pretty heavily with the support to make sure that he's always at all points in time got some sort of help. So I like how the team has realized, look, if we just play through Beisheng, we can actually make things work, and that definitely is the dynamic that W has found the most successful.
I think it's just one of the most interesting teams to watch as well. We will talk about drafts in a second. I do want to talk about individual players and work our way out because in the bottom side of the map, while Teacher Ma and Beisheng kind of the highlight of this team in some regard to the success or failure, John Mung has improved a little bit. Missing has been called one of the best supports in the league for a while, or at least up in that upper echelon with Hook champions, ironically enough.
I think Missing is the other best player on this team by far. Missing looks great. It's, again, another person who's kind of, now he's a long-standing member of this roster, right? Great to see him come into form. Great on the engaged champions. the thing I love, especially about him and Jomung, is they're willing to look for those 2v2 kills, which
Yeah.
has gotten them solo killed quite a few times, but they've also picked up quite a few solo kills themselves. They're extremely aggressive. They do well in team fights. Missing, strange, because he's actually not a support that pairs up with his jungler, so he doesn't pair up with Beishong as much as some other supports.
Yeah.
But he's always in the position he's needed. My only one qualm with this bot lane, it's kind of what jungle 2 is, and it might be there, but I never see them actually ping out the enemy jungle that well. So I'll see the point where they'll know where the enemy jungle is. They'll control their wave horribly, and then they'll get ganked to something that was obvious, and I'm like, wait, so is Beishong not pinging this out, or are they talking about it in comms, and are they just dying for no reason? Because I've seen it way too many times where they know the enemy jungler's there. They know 100%, and they just die.
I hope it's not being talked about. They just, we forgot. Sorry. I thought we were fine. Sorry. What do you think about Jomung, though? Because Jomung as a player was, I think, one of the worst AD carries in regular season spring. He had a really good playoffs, as we saw on mainly on his Aphelios. Now he's had some carry moments, and it feels like the ceiling is a bit higher than expected.
Yeah, and that's why I think Jordan's probably going to have a different answer to me. I'm kind of like, if and on about him, I think he does have these super high highs, but again, it's these moments where he'll just int, he doesn't give it, like he doesn't set up his wave properly, gets ganked when you think they should know he's there. I'm kind of caught in the middle where I'm not entirely sure where to place him, but I think the moments where Jomung shines, he looks absolutely incredible. I just wish we could see them more often rather than the times where it just falls apart and it looks too shaky.
You know, surprisingly, I'm on the complete same page as you.
Okay.
I'm not sold on Jomung still. I know he's kind of quickly becoming a fan favorite, but he has cool, interesting moments. But overall, it's surprising that we keep saying I'm all about potential, because for AD carry, at least, I'd much prefer the safe guy that's just going to collect CS under turret and like do his job later rather than the flashy playmaker. It's exciting when it works, like Jackie Love in previous years, like Uzi. But when it doesn't work, you get Gala today where you just ruin the whole game. And Jomung also has had some pretty bad team fights. One of the Ashe games, I think it was against RNG. One of the Ashe games was terrible. He missed every single ultimate. And again, middle tier AD carry has moments where he looks amazing. He has these huge playmaking moments, but I do think a lot of the credit should go to missing. But missing looks really good.
Is it fair to say that Jomung is at least better than spring regular season?
Yeah, I think for sure.
Okay, good. I mean that's a step up.
The thing is, he's newer, he's young, he's improving. He doesn't need to come in and be the best AD carry.
That's true.
He gets time, and he's doing quite well to where, once again, his team looks poised to make it playoffs.
Finally, top side of the map. Tell me just a little bit about Morgan, because Joe would be upset if we didn't talk about Morgan at all.
As his housemate,
Yeah.
please do him some
Look,
justice.
I feel like I've been given the Bible of Morgan at this stage, where it's just like
God.
it's like living with a what's the guy that calls the door?
Mormon.
Missionary. Anyway, he
that's
just
fine.
is coming along going, hey, look, can you please buy into this religion now? 'Cause he is super hyped about it. I think, honestly, Morgan does look very good. The Renekton's looked really strong. When we saw him in spring, it was looking back towards
The
the likes
Ornn
of
in
the
their
Ornn.
recent
Exactly,
series, right?
And as
the
of late,
Ornn's kind of been up and down, but it's mostly been up.
but that's the thing, is that like it's still, he is providing these fantastic engage tools, and when he's been on things like the Renekton, he's still winning out of lane. He's still looking super strong. So I honestly have Morgan like super high up on my list of top laners, and I think I was pleasantly surprised with, because that bot side of the map started to clean up at least a little bit, it unlocked Morgan to play these more carry orientated champions, and we've seen a lot more from him as a result.
I think Morgan is. I did my top lane tier list the other day.
Oh, really?
I think I had him top 5.
There's
I mean, you look at top lane right now, I think it's kind of all over the place. Again, like the Shy, Zoom, things like this. But Morgan's been consistent. You question his champion pool because he does default to Renekton. Like, this is the team that will first pick Renekton. If there's any team in the LPL that will first pick Renekton, it's them. They want him on it. He looks great on it in lane. It gives him the ability to influence team fights. I'd say mostly he looks great. Like, he's an overall like 7 or 8 out of 10. He just has these moments where, whether it's the Ornn ultimates in recent series, there was one game, I think it was the game they lost to FPX, where he has this horrible TP flank. Like, his team is fighting like here in Dragon.
Are you so
and
far away?
He TP's like way back here,
Yeah.
and his team's actually throwing down wards for him. They're like, hey, TP here, and then they all die and lose, and you're just like, Morgan, where was the patience, my man? Where was the patience?
I mean, the downside's there for sure, but it's good to see that you put him in the top 5.
And the funny thing is that, like, because I live at Munch, every single piece of, like, say if we're doing assets for the next day or whatever it is, we'll have Morgan's face. So every single player
All the
when I'm doing an
time.
asset is
His
just become
drafts
Morgan.
in the story, because if you guys don't know, we obviously have a story document where we put in everything to run our shows. Every draft asset, no matter what team, is just,
Just
Morgan's face.
Yep, it is interesting. But, you know, I feel like I kind of ended on a negative note with him. But
Oh.
let me say the one aspect I think does elevate him is we see these top laners that are just so good at consistently moving for their team, you know, hovering mid with the Call of the Forge God, walking towards the dragon, things like this. Morgan does it consistently every time, really does live up to that, like, protege of Zoom kind of aura he had coming from JDG. And it's something that definitely sets him apart from a lot of the top laners in LPL.
He was hyped coming into the LPL. Just as a side note, I know. I think was it LS or someone who even put out a tweet originally
like a
about
long time ago, actually.
Morgan. So a bit of traction with that top laner, still going towards development. Let's take that step back. We've talked about the players. I want to talk about the drafts because the draft is actually one of the most interesting part of WE and how they build their team composition. There's still some similarity there, and I know that people who would have watched Spring WE would expect the Galio, the Echo, and then everything else will just mix and match. But what do we think of it now versus Spring?
I'm kind of up in the air. I like the Galios, the Twisted Fates, and these kind of things where Teacher Bar can get out and still have an impact. I'm not a fan of Aurelion Sol. Every time I watch him on this champion, I'm like,
I think he's 0%.
what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. Like, I see the champion locked in. It can't push waves as effectively as it used to, obviously, with the changes to the W.
Yep.
And I just feel like, okay, cool, you haven't quite pushed the wave enough where you can go and get these early roams off. You get to team fights, well, you're not really dealing much damage. You're not really providing much utility. And I'm just like, well, what's the play here? What's supposed to be happening?
I'm in the middle ground. So his laning on the Aurelion Soul is actually really good. Like, it's insane to see. I love that he's one of the people who've moved over to that, like, Electrocute build when the changes did come in, knowing, like, it does have such a strong early laning phase. He's actually had priority in most of the matchups I saw. He played it the other day. Can't remember against who. It was against a Syndra. He was just doing such a good job of keeping her pushed in, having a non-interactive laning phase. The problem is that, especially that game, we didn't see him use it anywhere. We didn't see them ever set up a play bot. We didn't see them, you know, be that kind of middle ground in team fights where he had a great performance, had amazing Qs and ultimates. He just did nothing. He had an amazing laning phase, then did nothing.
And that's the gripe I have with it, is that, like, I know that this champion is supposed to go and do things. Like, you're supposed to interact with the rest of the map, not your lane. But every time I see him lock it in, it just becomes that non-interactive lane where I'm just going to sit here, farm it up, and never go anywhere else. And when WE relies so heavily on having these playmakings coming from the mid lane, setting up alongside Beishang, not having that interaction there just is so confusing.
That's how they hit playoffs, right?
I do want to say, like, in isolation of the draft itself with the Aurelion Souls and things like that, I'm fine. I'm actually fine with it. I don't think their execution's been up to par, but my biggest problem with WE drafts is when they get the ones that are, it's like Galio is their sole initiator, or they're using the, like, protect the 80 carry comp with, like, Galio Trundle. I'm so tired of seeing, like, the Galio Trundle duo, and then you're just solely playing for your 80 carry, because it never works. You're just using your taunt as, like zone control so the enemy doesn't run into you. And especially now where, okay, I'll just pick Zoe, and then I'll pick Ezreal, and then I'll stand way back here, and guess what? Your Trundle's not going to, like, come flash on top of me and then you ult in. That's not how that works. And we just see it lose. But actually, WE is the one team that have made it win, but it's not supposed to win. It feels like it's a lot more the enemy making a mistake rather than WE should actually be able to find these plays. So that's my big gripe with their draft. I like the spirit of their draft because they typically do have a way to play out the game. Even if it's something like where they have a bunch of early game champions like Ashe, Renekton, you know, Pantheon
Rumble
or Galio, Rumble, like all this stuff.
I mean, the Pantheon's a good one because I love the Pantheon.
You still have a window, right? Like, you still have a way to win. And that to me is the biggest thing I judge a draft on. Is there a clear way that you can, like, get an advantage and win this game? And a lot of their drafts do have that. Just some of them do not, and it triggers me.
Well said. I think for WE, for fans that don't know, go back and have a look at a couple of WE games because the drafts and how they play it out and how crucial Teacher Mara is to a team that he came into over Plex, because Plex wasn't working out at the start of spring.
I mean, Plex was not good last year.
I mean, like, there's no surprise to anyone that Plex did not get better. First 4 weeks, I believe, even after coming back, did we see Teacher Mara straight away in spring? Or was it a couple of weeks
we
and
saw,
then?
we saw Plex first, which, I mean, to be fair, apparently there have always been communication issues with Plex, so I want to throw that out there. It's not just like him in isolation is bad. He's just not worked out on the teams we've seen him on in LPL.
Kind of sad. There's a lot of hope for him as well. But Teacher Mara came in out of nowhere, and Teacher Mara has been a very unique mid laner who impacts the map.
And it's given the identity to WE, which is why I don't think anytime soon we'll be seeing the likes of Shanks coming in,
Yeah.
because it feels like that just throws so much of the WE identity and style out the window, and you got to refigure this out on the fly, because you're looking more at those control mages rather than the likes of the Gallios and the Twister and these things that can influence them.
And I mean, the synergy that's built up with Teachama and Beishang, which has come out of nowhere, right? I think Beishang's become better because of Teachama's influence on this team. I think the whole team's heightened. We actually had this discussion today that teams can be heightened by everyone playing. Well, what was it about V5?
It's like like when the system's working, it's
Yes,
elevating
yes.
everyone's individual play.
The
and
sum is better than parts.
exactly, and it's kind of interesting when the sum is better than its parts, but then the parts also are just doing better because of the sum. So it's just really nice to see, and WE is definitely a team that's an example of that. And, we've touched on their players, so they have a few top players in their role, right? We look at jungle, support, maybe top.
Mhm.
We look at their drafts. They have ways to win, but it's obviously very
Telegraphed, right?
telegraphed.
Yeah.
So the thing to me is, I don't know how far I expect them to go is the problem. Like, pieces are there, but there's also pieces missing.
Is it just going to be like a spring rinse and repeat? Because I was going to ask you what you think the highest highs of WE are with the style that we're seeing, with these comps that flow with the wind, where it goes.
I mean, I think we're already kind of seeing the results. I mean, they end up losing out to like the top teams pretty often, like IG. I think they've lost to top as well. So I think overall we're going to see a very similar performance in spring, where 5th, 6th is kind of as high as we go.
I
But
mean, I'm
that's
expecting
still pretty good.
playoffs. though,
Dagda,
right?
stop agreeing with my thoughts, because I said on the ESPN show that they would be 5th or 6th. So you clearly watched that. And
Yeah,
just
you think
stole
I
my
woke
logic.
up that early
Yes,
to watch?
yes, I.
What
yes, I
time did you get up at? Like 7?
Seven,
for that?
seven, yeah. Get up at 7.
Dude,
But
we've all
yeah,
been on the show, and
Yeah.
look, it's great, but it's very early.
It
It
is.
is.
But
I
fifth,
will
sixth.
eventually watch it again.
But
I just
worth
don't
it.
have a chance this weekend.
Good. Well, you stole my answer.
See, the
fifth,
thing is,
sixth.
I was yesterday's cast, then I'm on today's cast and the podcast, and then I'm
Yeah.
on tomorrow as well. So my schedule is kind of like LPL focused right
Hey,
now.
then you have like 6 days to yourself or something like that. So
And that's for alcohol.
you?
So God only knows when I'm going to get there.
Yeah, this is the
Irish.
G-rated car.
Yeah.
We've
Or
definitely.
Harbin sponsored.
Before we move on from WE, because we are getting towards the later half of the show, is the key player still Teachama? Is the living or dying of WE dependent on Teachama, or is it a greater answer than that?
I don't think it's as black and white as it's Teacher Ma, right? It's like a couple things that need to come together in game for their system to work. I think draft will still come down to it. Obviously, we've seen teams get better at playing around their drafts, but there are certain drafts they are still able to execute when they can enable their bot lane through mid jungle. So ultimately, for me, it still ends up bot.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that's a large portion of it. Is just it's the way the team as a whole, as a dynamic, comes together is what makes this strong. We've just kind of harped on about the systems, and I don't want to go into that again, but definitely that seems to be the way that this team functions. And yes, Teacher Ma is a vital part of that, but so is every other facet of that.
Because I could see a crazy world where WE could climb up to like semis, or like even make like a magical run where those sums of the parts of the sum get to their highest limit, like their highest
So
ceiling.
we talked about this, I think, on cast earlier, where realistically, in my mind, WE should not be a top 4 team. There's other teams you look at that should be better than WE, but they're not now. Here in the LPL, it's not about what should be or what could be with your potential. It's about how you're playing at the end of the day. And somehow, despite every time I look at their games, think W is going to lose this one. They always win, so it is possible, but it will be tough.
Yes.
The good thing is, again, WE knows their identity. They're fine with it. They're going to keep playing through it.
That's
It's
good.
going to work half the games. It's not some other times. But like Rob said, if everything comes together, it works. And if even one thing kind of falls through, like the Morgan TP we talked about, is when everything can kind of just blow up.
It's kind of crazy because, like, I compared WE to E-Star in a sense because, I don't know, today on broadcast we compared E-Star. E-Star's like a worse WE.
Yes.
But E-Star were figured out, and it feels like now they're suffering because of it. WE, I do feel like teams have figured them out, but it's not like it's not actionable in the games that we see, in the series that we see. It's not as cut and dry as we know how to shut WE down because within the comps they can still go different ways.
It's also different because I feel like E-Star are figured out in the sense that, like, they would always go level 3 gank bot or
Yeah.
level 2 if, they have Jarvan, which they did a lot of the time. Every single game, it was so easy to know to where we're saying WE are a mid-jungle team that leads spot. But that's not necessarily like a actionable play every game that they make, right? Maybe sometimes it is. Pantheon Echo, he's going to gank mid at like level 4, but different comps do different things. Sometimes he's going to invade your jungle. Sometimes he's going to gank through bot. Sometimes through mid. Sometimes Morgan's going to like lean in, open the
right.
call to Forge God. So it's not as easily counterable as I think the E-Star play was because it was every single time we're going to gank bot.
And as well, it's you got to put respect onto how this can play out multiple different times. It's not like, as you said, level 3 in the game, we're going to go bot with E-Star, or we're going to go gang shell by top, and you know it's going to happen because Cryin has already left lane back in spring, and then we see with Fun leaving lane this time around. So I think when you look at, okay, well, we know at some point in time they're going to try and enact this play, but when you've got the entire first 15 minutes of the game where they can try and make these plays happen, and you've got to give respect to that at all points in time. You're going to slip up, or there's going to be a chance where your wave is just not in the position that you want it to. You overextend, and it gives the opportunity for WE to make these plays.
Also, I want to throw in the fact that they do run comms to a lot of globals. So typically it doesn't matter if you know it's going to come or not. Well, there's a global, so they get to go do it. There's nothing you get to do.
It's like when. It's like the finger is on the trigger, and you're like, when are they going to blow us up, right? You know it's coming, but as you said, you don't know when. I like talking about teams like WE. Teams with very strong identities. I think in the LPL, WE have one of the strongest identities by far. Up there with teams like IG, I think FPX as well. Who else would you say has a strong identity? Top esports at the moment?
You know, and I actually love the way you put this, because this is something I've been thinking now for probably the past year at least, that the thing that LPL does better than everyone else in the world, I think, is accept those identities and just, like, you're going to know who's going to be the world champion in a sense of, like, what's the meta around Worlds and who's the best LPL team at that style, right? And to me, the fact that we don't have a lot of teams that are, like, let's use the word generalists, we have a bunch of specialist teams who excel in one area, will always get you higher than a team that's just okay at everything, which I think is what the LCK kind of is now. They were always just decent at every aspect of the game, what, like, NALCS tries to be, things like this. We see G2, more of a specialist team, Fnatic as well, right? And these teams do tend to be more successful. So I like that WE is doing this because let's say in 2 patches suddenly everything gets buffed that you play. Suddenly WE are going to be the best team in LPL, right? So I like this approach.
That's a good way of putting it. IG and FPX, both specialist teams who won Worlds, right? So I guess I was trying to think back, like, would you call TPA of Season 2 specialist?
I mean, we're
that's a
I was
lot
going to say, we're getting...
You were talking about this today.
We're going too far down the rabbit hole. But because back then, League of Legends was so different. Teams were just constantly figuring out new ways to play the game. But, I mean, think about it. In Season 2, things like counter jungling were becoming revolutionary. So it was just too different.
Personally, I think Fnatic Season 1 were the most unique team. I think that's definitely the way
but
you know, I just want to say
Worlds?
Season 5 HQ were the best team to ever come out on this earth. And if they did have to play SKT in quarters, you know, they would have been top 4. Throw that out there.
All right. So we almost went down the full rabbit hole there. I don't know why I went to Season 2. We're talking about it in the dressing room while we're getting our makeup done today. That's right. We're going to be moving forward. If you have any more questions about WE, don't feel pressured to throw them down below. Actually, do feel pressured. Throw them down below.
Like, comment, subscribe, smash that button.
Smash,
Let's go.
Ring that bell.
And follow Jordan Corby LOL on Twitter.
Wow. You're not kidding. You went through the whole Twitter handle. It has been a very long night. We've just come off the TriCast, of course. But we are getting towards the end of the show, and your last hit. It's time for everyone's last hit, where we get community opinions and statements and really harsh questions and throw them your way. We pick 5 a week, and this week we're going to be starting your last hit with our very first question from 811652. This is not spam. At ELLUCERNE. Question is, what happened to the Shy, and can IG's bottom lane carry? Now, from what we've seen from the JDG series, this question may have changed from the last time we've seen IG. So what do you guys think?
I think for, like, starting with the Shy, I mean, we saw, especially in previous years, I think he was, like, a bit smarter about how he would not necessarily put out the lane, but, like, respecting the enemy jungler, throwing down wards, things along these lines that we saw early in the split. He even just wasn't warding for himself, and it's not like he didn't have a ward. He would buy control ward situations, and he wouldn't use it. He would just push out the lane and then get ganked, and you're just, what's going on? He has started to improve on that one. So
Good.
But I think the problem for me is that it's not only if you just babysit him through the early stages now. If you get him out of the laning phase, you're like, cool, we made it. And then it's like, no, because now he's just decides to get to the mid game and goes, hey, I'm just going to queue in on Jace into 3 members of the enemy team. And, well, sorry about that, guys. I suppose you're 4v5 at the moment.
We made it.
that one to me comes down to more of a, like, there's blame for him for sure, but it's like, where's the shot calling on this team? And obviously there is none because they all just play however they want. And that's the IG style. But yeah, he's dropped off. Other teams have figured them out. I think it's a combination. And for the IG bot lane thing, No,
Yeah,
I don't.
can
I
they
don't think
carry?
they can carry. No,
I
I'm
was
not sold.
super optimistic on them coming into 2020 spring because of what I saw in Vici. I don't think they're the worst bottom lane in the LPL. I don't think they're
I think
close.
they're like mid-tier, right? They're
Yeah.
average.
Yeah.
They're fine.
But I think they have a high ceiling. I think Puff. I think Southwind especially is the better out of the two.
I remember we said this, that stylistically to me, I liked them for IG for the fact that, like, we see it with Jackie Love on Top Esports this year, right?
Forward he goes.
Exactly. So he is very much like the Shine rookie in the sense that he's going to put himself in harm's way to try to make these crazy outplays. To where, Puff is not going to do that. Puff's going to farm, and then he should be a strong teamfight carry. There's two problems. That one, we don't typically see IG actually teamfight that much, so he doesn't have the peel and things of that nature. And two, he does not play forward at all in these. He could be a 3-item Aphelios. He's not going to walk forward. He just isn't willing to do it.
And I think that's the big problem here is that, like, I feel like if you had a team where you were playing these front, like maybe even like EDG, where you got this like front to back style, you got a jungler who's going to stand in front of you with the support and a big L tank top lane, then he'll feel safe to walk forward and maybe deal damage, and then we might see a better performance out of them. But this is IG. They are going to be skirmishing all over the place. None of these fights are going to make sense. And when Puff doesn't have the confidence to take those steps forward and try and get into the fights and actually be the carry, I think that's why we're seeing such a negligible performance out of that bot lane at the moment. Is just there's no setup for them to a certain extent as well.
And then we get to playoffs, and then suddenly Puff will go for it. I don't know. I just feel like with the feeling of IG, the bot lane could change at any time. But I agree. I'd say no as well for IG's bottom lane. Let's move on to the second question, because this one is something we were actually all discussing today. Number 2 comes from Psychomat at Matthew75910502. People with so many numbers in their name. Top Esports won't drop a series this split.
No, they definitely will.
They definitely will. If this is LPL, I just can't believe they won't drop a series.
Okay, so let's go further. Who takes it?
FPX, IG,
Rogue Warriors will.
V5.
V5. That's a good
Look,
answer.
Rogue Warriors is going to do it. There's going to be one game that's
my
going to come up. It's
God.
going to be Rogue
I
Warriors.
think they've played Rogue Warriors.
Have they
Have
already?
they?
I think they have
I
actually.
think
Yeah.
they've played Rogue
But look,
Warriors.
I still think there will
17
be
teams. Who
something. I think there definitely will be a series. I mean, if we're talking about JDG looking potentially back and forward, maybe although they may have played as well.
They did
They
play.
haven't
There's so
played
many
No, but
JDG.
here, no.
Dude.
So
But
they
yeah.
haven't played FPX. They haven't played IG.
Yeah.
They haven't played V5.
The IG one's going
So-
to be really good. And because IG versus Top Esports is
Hey,
like
I'm just saying.
individual power.
Yeah, so that one will be interesting as any IG series.
Yes.
FPX showing they can lose game 1, come back in a kind of mediocre fashion game 2, and then stomp you game 3. So as long as they can go to 3
Dude,
games.
V5 will be the ones to do it. I'm just calling it now. I want this out on the record. V5 will beat Top Esports.
If we need to predict who'll do it, I actually think it'll be FPX.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So this is a hard no that they will not go
Wait, I
flawless.
want to hear Dagda's prediction on
Okay,
who.
so Dag to go.
Just guess a team who's already played them.
Yeah, I've mentioned so many. Honestly, I feel like there will be like some strange team because it always happens in the LPL where it's like it's never like an FPX or an IG where like, oh yeah, this is the team that they should lose to. Or
A
there's an
BLG
excuse.
versus them.
It oftentimes.
I don't think so.
I think it's going to be something like Sunni or something. One of these
Some
teams that are
random,
like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
middle of the table that is just like going to have a good day.
Like
Top
Sunni against
Esports are gonna be
LGD
weird.
and just
Yeah.
2-0 them. Yeah.
Exactly, and
Somehow.
it's just going to be something along those lines that's just going to come out of nowhere, and we're just like, how?
And I also want to just end this off on, it doesn't look like they're playing with 150%, right? It looks like they do understand that they're the best team in the league, and they are playing loose. We are seeing Jackie Love do Jackie Love things. We are seeing sometimes where Knight looks like he doesn't care too much, but still obviously playing extremely well.
Buys them and Jais every single game.
Exactly,
Like,
so... But it'll happen. It'll happen.
I will say for Top Esports, they're 7-0 as we're recording this. There's a chance, and this is a bit of a tangent. There's a chance that in the next week and a half they secure a playoff position. Not like realistically,
not guaranteed,
but like getting to 9 wins.
Just
It's
like
9-0. It's just like, well, they're in playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, a lot of people would say this team's definitely in playoffs. This team not getting Worlds would be a
Look,
surprise.
I don't want to ruin the script for everyone.
They're first.
Top Esports are winning LPL.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
good.
I've said this before, it's not necessarily about the destination, guys. It's about the journey. It's about how we get there.
You're
That's
a good
what we
LPL
want to see.
caster. I'll tell you what. Dag, did you want to talk about the journey or is it about the destination?
I think he's summed it up better than I ever could. It's nice to see some positivity on this desk coming through from Lyric
God,
and
sometimes I
about
hate
the
it.
journey.
I don't like positivity. I'll move forward. This one comes from someone who's been asking the same question for a while and has also been, talking to me about this for a while as well. This comes from MiraQVL, at MiraQVL. He said, thoughts on the lack of Omnistone gameplay in the LPL? Are there genuinely no spots where it can come in? Now, this person very much likes Omnistone. What are your thoughts? Because Set was the last person to use it.
I was like, I know that name. Where do I know that name from? And then I just remembered your Twitch stream. I was like, oh, of course.
He will keep asking it in the comments every time I ask for questions, so I thought we'd get it out here on the 4th episode. So what are your thoughts about Omnistone at the moment?
It's hard to just be like, oh yeah, here's everything about Omnistone, because it's like there's so many different facets where it's used. You see it on set support, you see it on like the AD Twisted Fate mid. There's like certain champions where you can try and play it. Personally, it massively depends on the situation. It's definitely one that you can get some more use out of going aggressive and laning. Maybe even if you want to go for like a Blitzcrank or something, you can have some fun with it. But I think it's such a niche rune, and the opportunities that you have to use it are just a bit all over.
Look, it's a win more rune. It's like a win lane, win more rune. You take it because you can cycle faster through runes, so potentially be able to deal more damage or take more trades if depending on what runes you get right. So that's why when it came out, we did see it on things like Nico's a very much win lane champion. I don't think we ever saw it in competitive, but it was played a lot in solo queue when it came out.
Didn't Mole play at bottom? Did in
maybe
spring?
actually,
I'm not sure, but
he may have played it in one of the lanes that he played
but
it in. I'm not sure.
Here's the point. For you out there, if you want to take Omnistone, go Smurf in some lower elo, pick a win lane champion, pick TF, pick Nico, pick Lucian, pick anything that's going to stomp lane, which, I mean, TF doesn't really stomp lane, which is why we're not seeing Omnistone TF in pro play, because not the same.
Spellbook is better.
But point is, you can run it in solo queue. You're going to get a rune more often to use. You could potentially just snowball a game off that. But it's not reliable enough for pro play.
It's definitely not reliable enough. Thank you for that, Miracu. I'll get the same question next week as well. We'll go to number 4 from your favorite person at CZAR Face with an underscore on each side. Question 4 says, if BLG miss playoffs again, they need a different coach. This is a statement, by the way. They need a different coach and possibly blow up their roster. One of the most disappointing teams in the world for how talented they are. What are your thoughts on this? This is a very hard-hitting statement.
First off, I got super confused when you said your favorite person. I thought this was someone that I was actually going
Oh,
to.
no, sorry.
No, not
actually,
the name of
actually, the username was
I thought
your
it was
favorite
my
person.
Twitter. I thought it was my Twitter question, but keep going.
All right. I mean, what do you think? Because he or she's saying they need to blow up their
As
roster
someone
if they fail.
who put this team in playoffs, is someone who, when I came to China initially, I'm telling these guys after week 1, I'm like, guys, BLG's going to be a top 3 team. BLG might win the league. I was sold. I was sold on this roster. I was sold on this team. If they don't make playoffs, I agree. Blow it all up. Fire the coaching staff. This is really harsh to come out.
Fire the coaching staff.
Point is,
Coach
hire me. Put me in there. Just get this going.
Here's my salary.
Not to make any overreaching statements, but I agree. You look at the talent on this roster. It's too good. Like, Fofo comes in. A lot of his lanes are great. We see a lot of times in team fights where he shows up in their latest win. Fofo doing really well on the Zoe. Meteor was a top 3 jungler last year.
Yep.
Kingan wasn't the best player in LCK.
But ADD was a top-tier top laner last year as well.
True. But exactly. So Kingan coming in, top-tier top laner. ADD as well. And then, sure, I guess their bot lane was always a question mark. But the thing is, this team should at least be competitive.
Yep.
So I'm going to backtrack a bit in the sense that they don't necessarily need to make playoffs to justify blowing up their roster and coaching staff. But if they're at least not competitive, that's where I think as an owner you got to ask a question of, hey, what are we doing here? We need to start from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they're going to just keep losing, I mean, clearly this roster isn't working, and there's whatever issues going on can't be resolved. So you got to get rid of it. You got to change up something, because clearly just hammering home the same dead plan every single time isn't going to find you anything. So yeah, I agree with Lyric. If you're getting to the point where you're still coming into the summer
Start
on
again.
The members that are on this squad, the talent that's here, and you're still not hitting playoffs, or at least, as you said, competitive. But I'd see it as playoffs for this team. I think you just scrap it, start again.
I also do want to end on a bit of a silver lining for the fact that it would also just be better for everyone on the team if it was blown up. Like if this team can't reach 9th or something like that, you'd much rather see Fofo on another roster, Meteor on another roster, Kingan somewhere else, even their bot lane, right? Wings coming in promising, Shinmo being given another chance on another roster, and even Coach Sim, right? He's been around. He was on TPA. He was on Sooning before coming into the LPL. So a man with a lot of pedigree. I think all of these people could be utilized better elsewhere if this project doesn't work out.
I'd have to agree with that as well. BLG called the smartest team in spring, at the start of spring. Also, last year, I was calling them the most LCK team, right? Like, 2019 was a big year for them, but unfortunate. I kind of miss Kuro on this roster as well, even though he didn't lane much. He just kind of played the LCK way, but... Any final thoughts on that, Dagda? Because BLG is kind of just sad.
No, I'm kind of laughing because you're like, they're the most LCK team. I was like, yeah, they lose to the LPL.
Hey. All right.
I just want to add, I'm genuinely a fan of this team. Again, I ranked them in playoffs for Summer Split despite their spring performance. I think they will make playoffs. I think they can make playoffs. Maybe not will now, but...
Dude.
Wait, what's their score right now? Do you remember off the top of your head? Do you know how many losses they have?
BLG.
I think it's
not.
6. I think they're 1-6. No, they'd be like 2-6 or something.
They got. I think they have two series.
Yeah, they have 2
wins.
series wins. I just can't
2 and
remember the
5 or
losses.
something.
2 and
right?
4, 2
So-
5.
2
Yeah.
5.
The point is,
Either way, they're down there.
I think they potentially can make it still.
Yes.
And if they can at least start winning now that they have their full roster that we expected them to have, I think that's when it's like, okay, run it back for next year. I'm a fan of this team. I'm a fan of the talent. I hope it works out.
All right, we'll leave it there. We have one final question. I like that. That was actually a really good question, by the way. So shout out. I think like BLG is a hot topic. Well, number 5. This is an interesting one. This is from Akshit Khanna. I hope I said that right. At Akshit Khanna, of course, on the Twitter. If you could bring one EU or NA player to play in the LPL, who would it be? Why? Who would it be and why? Thanks. Dagda, you're up.
A little part of me wants Carzy because I think he's just nuts.
Hey, he's
And
a
I think
great
he'd be
AD
great,
carry.
yeah. But I mean, look, I kind of want to just cast Perks as well. I think Perks would fit super well. It's like the easy throwaway one because I think he works super well with the LPL style where he's just got so many fastest to his play. He's fun to watch, outplay level, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if I was going to go with someone, I think Carzy. I think he'd be super fun to see in that AD carry position. And I think at the moment, our AD carries are kind of lacking to a certain extent, and I think bringing in such like a talented guy like himself could really just up the ante in the LPL.
Yeah, agreed. I actually really like him as an AD carry. Lyric.
So I want to kind of get 2 answers as well because I agree. Perks is the obvious one because Perks is the best player, in my opinion, to ever play in the West. Like, easily, hands down, he's proven it. Like, it's not even an argument. The fact that the guy was top 2 in 2 roles, has a bunch of titles, plays insane even from the eye test.
Very true.
Great. So moving on, maybe someone that would interest me is Bwipo, from the fact that I think Bwipo's the kind of guy, right, who believes that, like, if you're playing weak side, you can't just accept all the pressure, lose a bunch of waves, die multiple times. Like, you need to fight, you need to create pressure as well. You can't just lose out on everything. And I actually think his style could potentially work here, especially on a team that would have more facets to their play style, like being able to play through mid as well as maybe aggressive jungler support. So he's one that's always interested me. I think his unique champions and champion pool would do extremely well here.
Oh, true.
And again, Bwipo obviously has some bad moments, like memorable in finals where he just kept getting solo killed. I think it was on the Ornn. It was in a take-on-take matchup. Zach on Ornn. Yeah, Zach against Ornn. But I'd love to see him here. I think he's a very smart player from what we've seen in interviews as well.
I also have one that's completely out of left field, and it's just because he's a personal favorite of mine. Was back in spring 2018 when I was doing European Masters, Milica played this like Scion mid, and like I'd done a bunch of research on the dude, and I was like, this guy's got to be class. Just watch him; he's going to be really, really good. He came out of nowhere. His team Click Tech just smashed a bunch of the competition. They were really fun to watch, and I've just kind of watched him grow from there. And I was super excited when he got into the LEC. So, more so I can just see more of him. I'd love to see him in the LPL, but he's just a favorite.
I do want to wait just real quick. Not about him as a player. Banner of Command Scion. I missed that, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
Keep going.
all right. I'll give you one from each region because I want to throw my 2 cents in. First one, put Bjergsen in LPL, see what happens.
Ooh,
right?
that one would be fun.
A high-quality player, probably, is it fair to say NA's best player ever?
I think in history, yeah. But the thing that'd be fun is obviously people have started to finally question, his individual play on this team. So putting him here, kind of unlocking him, is he going to do worse? Is he going to do better?
And then he pairs up with Meteor, and then BLG are a top team, maybe. Who knows? And the other one, this one goes out to an OCE player, of course, an EU. It's Destiny. Like, bring Destiny over here because he's technically an EU player.
I just want to say, biased casters.
The funniest thing was when you saw him for the first time in LEC.
Dude,
we were watching the games at home, and you're like pausing the TV to take photos of him to send it over to me. Like,
and
dude, I'm so proud.
I see you, and I'm like, and I'm talking through him like, oh, Destiny's like, oh, you see this path? Oh, this is really smart by him.
Yeah.
Good play by Destiny.
It's like the grandmother who finds their kid in the newspaper, like cuts out the little picture of them tying up. It's just like,
oh, I'm so proud. Yeah, he's such a great support. He deserves it. Big shout out to Destiny over in EU, over on Origin. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our questions. And I have to say, questions are getting better each week. Kind of a nice little segment that we can wrap up on.
Yeah.
The positivity, especially for someone like Lyric. Very good.
I feel like I might have gone too harsh on BLG at first without giving context.
That's okay.
But other than that, I was a more positive guy today.
Hey, coming forward, I know we've changed the format a bit. We're not looking towards forward matchups just because of how the format is with the last hit, especially since we're, getting released on Wednesday and you got a couple of days to see those matchups. But at this point in time, I will just quickly say to finish off the show, I'm really looking forward to V5 versus Top Esports. That's all I'm going to say. That is like the ultimate test because they versus IG after that. That's the ultimate match. Is there any matchups?
Can I just throw one out real quick as well?
Yep.
Rogue Warriors versus DMO.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for that one.
Great.
It's going to be a
always are.
banger.
Now I'm on the Top Esports V5 hype train. I think that's going to be really, really cool.
You leave
Yeah, I'm
Red.
going to just leave you to
Rogue Warriors DMO.
Excuse me.
For all my true,
Yes,
for all
so
the true
Top
LPL
Esports
fans out
V5.
there, let's
All
go.
right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. The last hit, of course, going to be with you every week. You can check us out on Spotify if you're not doing so already. Big thank you to Lyric, to Dagda. I am Hysterics. The last hit will be back with you next week here as we continue to go through everything you need to know for the LPL. It is bye for now, but not forever. See you next week.